Is it smarter to lock rupees 2 crores in a house this year or simply rent one for rupees 75,000 a month? On the surface of it, it feels like just math, but in 2025, the decision is tied to bigger shifts in India's economy. From GST rate cuts to repo rate reductions, low inflation, and strong GDP growth. Let's start with how the environment has changed for home buyers in 2025. Okay, let's take RBI's recent repo rate cuts. They aren't just a technical headline since home loan rates are directly linked to the repo rates. Any reduction quickly trickles down into lower borrowing costs. The RBI's recent repo rate cuts have made borrowings cheaper. A rupees 2 crores house loan with 20% down payment leads to rupees 1.6 crore loan over 20 years. This used to mean an EMI of around 1.36 to 1.4 lakhs. Now that is closer to 1.28 to 1.3 lakhs. That is savings of over 10,000 a month, nearing 20 lakhs across the whole tenure. At the same time, inflation is at its record lows. With CPI inflation at just 1.55% this month, it's easing pressure in two ways. One, everyday expenses aren't climbing too fast, giving you more breathing space in your monthly budget. Two, the real cost of borrowing is cheaper than in high inflation years. Combine lower inflation with lower EMIs, and buying certainly looks more doable than it did a few years back. But what about renting? Low inflation may keep rent stable in short term, but in fast growing cities, the rent are not going to fall. That means a 75,000 rupee rent today will increase to rupees 1 lakh within a few years. Adding to the GST overhaul, the government slashed GST rates on cements from 28% down to 18% effectively from September 22nd. That by itself directly lowers the cost of one of the biggest raw materials in construction, which constitutes about 10 to 12% of the whole construction process. GST on other building materials like granite, marble blocks, and bricks have reduced. These changes are expected to reduce the overall construction cost by about 3 to 5%. So, for a 2 crore house example, the savings from just the reduced tax on materials could run into lakhs, thus making houses construction more economical. Then that's the bigger growth story. India's GDP is expanding strongly in 2025, driving higher incomes, better employment. That fuels demand for housing, which in turn supports property appreciation on the flip side. Growth also means rents won't stay flat. That 75,000 today could easily be 1 lakh in a few years. But let's not forget the personal finance side of the decision. Buying a house means an EMI of over 1 lakh a month, plus upfront costs like stamp duty, registration. Yes, you build an ownership value and get tax benefits, but you also tie yourself to a long-term financial commitment that limits flexibility. Renting, on the other hand, feels lighter. At rupees 75,000, it's almost half the EMI. The money you save each month can be invested into mutual funds or other assets, which, due to compounding's magic, might rival or even beat property return. Renting gives flexibility to move as your career moves forward or your lifestyle changes. The flip side to renting: at the end of 20 years, you don't own a house. You might have built financial assets, but not a home of your own. So, in 2025, is it the right time to buy? The truth is, both options are with a trade-off. The current economy with lower rates, reduced GST, and strong growth makes ownership more attractive than it was a few years back. But renting still holds its ground as the cheaper and more flexible choice, especially if you are disciplined with your investments. At the end of the day, it's less about repo rates, tax benefits, and more about your priorities. Do you value stability and ownership, or do you want flexibility and liquidity? And if you'd like to weigh these choices with someone who can map the numbers to your exact situation, our experts would be happy to guide you. Just click on the link in the description to connect with us. We'll help you cut through the noise and make the right decision.